After 25 years of seeing agents fail, there's one thing that I found they all had in common. They didn't have a plan. Today I want to share with you the business strategy formula that I've used with myself, also with our agents to help them build the business of their dreams. This is one you're not going to want to miss. One of the most critical parts of having a good business plan is making sure that you have it where you can break it down and you can measure things on not just an annual basis, but on a monthly, weekly, even daily basis. And so what I want to do is I want to go through this with you. Listen, if you'd like a copy of this and you haven't received it, or it's not in the email or wherever you're seeing this on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're seeing it, feel free to just direct message me. I'll be glad to send you a copy of this if you'd like to have a copy where you can do this yourself. But basically, let me kind of go through these things. The first place to start is with your income goal. Once we know what your income goal is now we have the opportunity really to begin to break this down into a place that we can really start breaking it down into those daily, weekly, and monthly opportunities to measure that goal. Mark in here your average sales price on the second line. And then also, once you've done that, find out what your average commission percentage of sale is. I did put a little bit of an example down at the bottom. So let's say with us, ultra luxury, the average sales price over $1 million, the average gross commission is 2.5% of transaction. Then whatever your split is, yours could be higher, it could be lower, whatever it is, just a net split here so that you can get the identified number of what your commission net split is after a company, after any franchise fees, whatever it is for you. I just want to break those numbers down. So again, it can be different here, but break that down for you, place that in here. Net income on your average transaction. Pretty simple here. We just take our average sales price, multiply it times the average commission split that you have, and that will give us what this net income on the average transaction is. Also, now we want to figure out how many transactions do we need to meet your annual goal that you have for the year for your income goal. The way we do this is we take the income goal up top, divide it by the net income on the average transaction. That's going to give us the number of transactions needed to meet the goal. Now that we have that average transactions, let's take this down just a little bit deeper. So really the best thing that we like to focus on is our leading indicators. So what are the things that we know that if we have certain things happen on a daily basis that we're going to reach this goal? The biggest one for me has always been the number of conversations I have. Industry averages tell us that 50 conversations equals one transaction. So what I want to do here, listen, yours may be higher, it may be lower, depending on your average price point, your experience, whatever it is. But if you want to just use a number just to start with, use the 50. Adjust after you've done maybe 300-400 calls, you're going to get a good idea of exactly where you are. So the average number of transactions for one transaction is what we want to fill in here. Again, use the industry average 50 if you're not sure and you don't know your own numbers personally. Also, the total number of conversations needed to reach the income goal. So how we do this is we take the conversations needed for the transaction, for one transaction. So in this case, if we're using 50, times the number of transactions needed to reach the goal. So whatever that is, what is that number for you? So for instance, just to make the numbers easy, let's say your goal is that you need to have 24 transactions. It's going to take 50 conversations. Then now we know that it's going to be roughly, if my math is correct, 1,200 conversations that you need to have in order to reach your goal of having those 24 transactions. So we put that right here. So that would be 1,200 in that case. Monthly, just divide it by 4. We're going to get the number for the month, making it easy for me with the 12,000 or with the 1,200 total. That's going to be 100 conversations a month. And then the weekly conversations, we know that basically we just divide that by 4 to get us to 25 conversations a week. Now, the daily conversations needed to reach the income goal, I like to use this based on a 5-day work week. And let me tell you why. Because listen, if you're going to reach the goals that I think a lot of you have, you're probably going to work more than 5 days. We all know that. But I want to base this on 5 days so that we've got a day that maybe we can catch up at the end of the week if we've gotten busy with closings or with showings or with listing appointments or whatever that this business does to take us away from our specific goals. I want to have a catch-up day. So in that situation, we just talked about 25 a week. That would be 5 per day. 5 conversations a day will get you 24 transactions. Really, when you break it down that way, not a lot of conversations. Now, what's the value of each conversation? I really like this because we all know there's going to be certain times when you call people that the call's not going to go well. or maybe you're going to catch them at the wrong time on a bad day. And maybe that just makes it where sometimes the first call is always the hardest call. So what I like to do is I like to take, okay, let's take this value of each conversation. The way we do this is we take our net income on the average transaction. So on the front page, whatever that was for you, we divide it by and then we divide it by the average number of transactions, the average number of conversations to reach the transaction. So if we do that, now all of a sudden we're sitting here, and depending on what your average sales price is, we're realizing that every single call we make is worth between $100 and $500 per call, depending on how many calls it takes for us to get that transaction. This is a great place to be, because what happens here is now let's say that it's $150. Let's say it's $200 just to make the numbers easy. If it's $200 per call that this number comes out for value of each conversation to get to a conversion and a transaction, and we know it's 200 and we know we're making 5 a day, we know that every day we sit down and we have 5 conversations. As long as we continuously do that, the numbers are going to work. It's the law of averages. It works. The more you do, the more the averages come to fruition. So if that's the case, then we know we made 5 conversations. Each one's worth $200. All of a sudden now we're sitting here and we realize that we've done $1,000. No matter whether this conversation went well or not, we know we're getting there, and we're going to make that work over time. So I like to have that number really there on some of those tougher days. Now, business planning. Let's talk about how we're going to get the conversations. Where are they going to come from? Because it's one thing to have conversations. It's a whole other thing to understand where they're going to come from. And before you start thinking about this, one of the things I would do is identify where your sales came from last year. I like to sit down with our agents and really dive into, okay, where did this closing come from? Was it a sphere of influence? Was it someone that you used direct mail and found that you got the listing that way? Was it a referral? Was it a Boomtown lead or an internet lead? Was it someone that you paid for? Was it an open house? Whatever it was, find those things. And all of a sudden you'll start patterning and you'll say, wait a minute, 60% of my business is coming from open houses. In this situation, we need to do more open houses. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. The second thing is just focus on those areas, just like what we were talking about, where you've seen results. And then third, I want you to rank by these strategies by your most effective, and then begin to put numbers to each strategy. I like to really just basically say, okay, this is most effective for me because everybody's different. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. How am I going to generate those highest end conversations? Because those are the ones not only am I going to be good at, those are the ones that I'm going to convert better. And those are the ones that are really going to make these numbers work for me. So the first one, past client conversations. What I suggest on this is to have a total number of past client conversations for the year. It would be like the number of past clients. So if you have a past client, you're going to touch them at least 4 a year with calls and conversations, okay? I like to have 2 calls and 2 unsolicited CMAs. If you've not seen my unsolicited CMA video, go back and watch that. That's where I'm providing a past buyer with an updated valuation once every 6 months via video. Also having those personal conversations. So now we've got month 3, we're going to call them, just checking in on you guys. Do you still love the house? Hope you guys are doing well. Month 6, we're going to do an unsolicited CMA. Month 9, we're going to call them and we're just going to check in with them. And then month 12, obviously, we're going to do another CMA. Also, hot seller lead conversations. These are people that you know, or you feel confident they're going to sell in the next 6 months. They've indicated that. I would just take that number, multiply it times 6. That's going to give you a total number of these conversations that you're going to have next year. Also, hot buyer lead conversations. These will take a little more typically. So I would take that number, those people that you feel like they're going to buy within the next year, multiply those times 12. That's going to be those hot buyer lead conversations. Also, database sphere of influence conversations. This is the number of leads that really have either visited your site in the last 12 months and last month, or people that you know, like, and trust you, and that you need to reach out to at least once a quarter. Multiply those number of people times 4. That'll get us a number of conversations there. Farming initial lead conversation. Well, let me say this top 4, this is where the majority of a mature business should come from. Now we're going to talk about some things that we're going to help get us to that maturity level. The first one is this, farming initial lead conversations. I like to think of, if I'm sending mailers to a farm, I'm going to have about a 1% conversion rate as far as conversations. So if I send 100 mailers out, I'm going to have 1 conversation. This is a place where you can just take your number of mailers that you send and just multiply it times 1%. That's going to give you the number of these conversations you're going to have on an annual basis. Also, open house initial conversations. I like to say I'm going to figure that I'm going to have 4 conversations per open house. So how many open houses am I going to have? And then circle prospecting conversations. This is the number of times you're going to take and basically draw a circle around a sale or a new listing that you have. You're going to call those 5 on the same side of the street, 10 across the street, let them know that this has happened, and just basically just ask them, is there any way you can help them, and make sure that they know about this property in case they have a friend, family member, or they're thinking about selling. Really with those, that really is to take the number, because you're going to make a number of calls there that you're not going to speak to people, and divide it by 5. So if I'm going to call 20 houses, I'm going to have 4 conversations every time I set up and I do one of these circle prospecting. You can put that number in there. Social prospecting conversations. Some of the best leads I got is being out in the area that I live and living the lifestyle. I'm on a coastal market. One of my best leads came one day sitting on the beach at sunset while my daughter was getting her senior portraits made. I would just encourage you, make sure as you're out that I would just figure you're going to have at least one conversation per outing that you're focused in on doing these things. Online lead initial conversations. Really, this is how many leads you're going to buy, to be perfectly frank, or that you're going to generate. Online lead, ad spend divided by the price per lead. So if you know that it's going to cost you whatever it is for you, depending on the type of lead, if it's $10 a piece and you're going to spend $200 a month, you're going to have 240 conversations this way, okay? And then also, FSBO expired listing conversations. Are you going to be focused on those? If you are, take that number and basically just it's a combination of those, and just 3-month-old expires are a really great place to also look. But this number of conversations you're going to have there. And if you have another source, put those in there. Now, what we want to make sure is do we have the total conversations that we've gotten by looking at this? Do we have enough to reach the number of conversations we need to get to reach our goal? Because if we do, then we're in good shape. If we don't, then we need to start adding them and add them at the highest places that fits for you based on your rankings. Now, once we get to that, I want to give you a couple of just bonus things here. And this is a way that you can make sure you stay focused. All of these, making the calls and having the conversations, those are leading indicators. If you do this, then this will happen. So what I want to do is they'll give you an idea, though. Make sure that you're keeping, number one, keep a list of your next people that are going to buy and list in front of you. I always like to say I would like to have a top 10 list. The 10 people that I feel like are going to be my next 10 listings. People that I've talked to that have shown an interest. 10 people that if I can find them the right property they're going to buy. I want to keep that list right in front of me all the time so that they're top of mind at all times. I used to keep it right across from my desk on the wall there where I could see it every time I looked up. Also, determine the percentages of business you want to come from listings and percentage from buyers. Utilize these numbers to determine the monthly goals for listing and buyer contracts. Identify your list to sale numbers. 80% is a good in the current market condition. In other words, if you're going to take a listing, you should be selling at least 80% of those listings right now, as long as you're pricing them correctly. It should even be higher, but I'm just using that as a good number. Once you've identified if your business is going to be 50-50, the number of conversations you have should be 50% with buyers, 50% with sellers. If it's 60-40, 60% to whoever it is to sellers, 40% to buyers. Make sure your daily activities are lining up with your annual goals. Also, keep those monthly goals visible. Break it down to a month. So if you know that you need to take an average of 2 listings every month, have it written on a board in front of you, listings taken this month. You will be able to see that. Also, join an accountability group. We do accountability groups where it's a once a week call on Fridays just to check in, make sure you're staying in line. Also a place where you can collaborate with other people. And then constantly monitor your progress. Are you in line? Are you ahead? And sometimes what you may even want to do is instead of just saying, okay, I need 24 listings, I'm going to take 2 each month, go back a couple of years, see when the majority of your business comes. It could be seasonal. You could have a January and looking back, you've never taken listings, but in June, you always take the majority of your listings. Percentage-wise, break that down so that your goals are in line with your monthly goals that will make sure that you're in line with what you're looking to do at the end of the year. I hope this is helpful. I hope this gives you a better idea of how to reach your goals. Again, if you'd like a copy of this, don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll be glad to send it to you, and I'll talk to you soon.